So you finally got the actual update for your
Yes.
Model 3? We talked about it a little bit last week, but you didn't actually have it, I don't
Yes,
think.
the long-awaited, long-rumored holiday update.
And
Um,
you are singing carols and all sorts with your car
yeah,
at this
I'm
point.
streaming Holly through the Sirius XM app, which I've been waiting for, I mean, literally since I bought the car. The way I've been,
That's why you bought the car.
what, Sirius XM?
Yes.
Not exactly, because when I bought it, it wasn't like the only way I could listen is stream it over Bluetooth from my phone, which is
Like
okay,
like a savage.
like a savage. But now it's like a whole interface, you know, it's integrated, nice job. However, and I've vented to this. I actually vented to the SiriusXM, I guess their UX designer on LinkedIn. I said, why do we have to set up a second account? I've had a SiriusXM account for probably over a decade,
Eons.
well,
Eons.
over 10 years at this point. And as soon as I got my Model 3, since I didn't have a car that natively supported it, I just did the streaming app and just, over Bluetooth. And so I called to activate it. And I said, yeah, I got a Tesla Model 3, blah, blah. I gave them all the information. And they said, oh, you're going to have to create a new account. I'm like, why? I've been a subscriber for over 10 years.
Well,
Well,
before
that's just
before we
how
dive
this is
more
set
into
up.
that, yeah. So okay, we'll
Anyway,
get to that more in a little bit. I'm Phil Royal. I'm one of the co-hosts here on the podcast, and I guess the blog as well. I don't know. I've been doing content creation and automotive journalism for 20 years. I also created a webpage called thewhatcar.com/store, and there you can help support the blog and the podcast by purchasing a t-shirt for the holidays. Buy something for the
yay.
holidays. It may arrive. It should arrive. If you order soon enough, it should arrive by the holidays. Great gifts and help support us. Makes us happy. What about you, Ed?
Likewise, 20 plus years in automotive content creation and moderation. Current day job, automotive electronics industry analyst, and the Walk Car co-founder and contributor.
So the guy at SiriusXM just said, "Go pound sand." Is that the deal?
The phone rep.
Yeah, or whoever it was you talked to.
The person I actually talked to was on the phone and said, "I'm sorry, you're gonna have to create a new account with a new email."
And is this going to
Um,
change at some point? Is this just like a
I
weird Model
I
3
have no
integration?
idea. I don't know why they set it up this way, but you literally have to. Now, fortunately, I just have an email alias that just redirects my inbox, which I ended up just doing that. But you literally cannot use the same email for a new account. So you have to use a different email.
So did you have to create your you had to create a brand new account and then cancel your old account and then
I haven't yet canceled my what I'm going to look probably in the right
so
now I
now
have
you've
two
got two, you're one
right now I
person with
have
two
two
serious
Sirius
accounts
XM accounts.
that you're paying for.
Yeah, ostensibly. So what I'm going to look and see if I can do is do an add-on streaming option to, I guess, the new account I created for my Model 3 and cancel my old one. That seems to be the most logical thing to do, but I don't know if they offer an add-on to the Tesla account or if it has to be just a Tesla account. You know what I mean?
God.
Yeah, it's stupid. It's like, why? I don't really understand the logic and why they couldn't just click a little click box and say add on to existing account. But somehow that's not how they set it up or they can't accommodate that. So I don't know.
This so this is not related to EVs, but I had a generator that I use when I'm camping, and I went to
Hmm.
start it during the last camping trip, and it wouldn't fire up. And I should have tested
Hmm.
this beforehand, and I
Hmm.
didn't really need it, but it didn't fire up. I'm doing all this diagnosis, whatever. I'm pretty sure at this point it's a spark plug. So I go
Hmm.
to I go online and I look, and the local AutoZone says they have this spark plug. So I show up and I say I'd like the
Hmm.
spark plug, and they say, we don't have that. We have this that isn't exactly the same. And I'm like, but your website says that you have it. And he's like, yeah, I know it says we have it, but we don't actually have it. And I'm like, why can't this just be easy? Why do things have to be this difficult? If you say you've got it, then you have it, and I want to purchase that. Here, Tesla worked with SiriusXM, says we're going to do this integration. And then they say, but we're not going to integrate existing accounts. You've got to create a brand new account. Why can't this just be easy?
Yeah. Yeah. It was, I like the actual interface itself. I like it's pretty straightforward and intuitive. I like that, but massive fail on the user experience in terms of the account integration. I'll just leave it at that. I could go on for
I would say
another
it's
half hour about
unacceptable.
it, but
I would go as far as to say it's completely unacceptable. This this smells of somebody coming up with the idea and pushing something through, and the other side, whether it's Tesla or Sirius XM, not being ready and not being able to do this
so
integration.
yeah.
And the other side is just like, well, we want to promote it. And I could see it from both sides. Tesla wants to promote it because, it's they've got users who have been undoubtedly contacting them for it. And Sirius
Hmm.
XM is the same thing. They probably have people. So one
Hmm.
of those two
Hmm.
sides just wanted to push this out, and the other side was completely unprepared. And now
Yeah.
you pay the price.
That's what I think. That's my kind of my hunch of what the issue is they said, well, if we're going to do integration into existing accounts, we got to set up this database and integration and blah, blah, blah. That'll be another 6 to 12 months. And they're like, no, we need to get this out ASAP. So I think it was a matter of not that they couldn't technically do it, but they couldn't technically do it in the time frame they wanted to do it. So they just said, F it, we're just going to do it this way, you know, and kind of deal with the fallout. So
Forget Ed. He doesn't matter to
yeah, it
us.
doesn't matter.
All
Anyway, moving
right,
on.
it's time to sell the car, Ed, and it's time to buy a Model Q.
No, oh, is it? Okay, well,
Yes,
maybe.
early next year. Isn't that when they're coming out?
According to a report out of China, where oddly enough,
Only the most
Tesla's
honest news comes from.
where actually Tesla's a fairly significant player. I'd say of the foreign transplants, probably the most now. So anyway, this comes from a site called Global China EV. First time I've heard of them. Anyway, uh, they're claiming, and this is kind of roundabout. I guess somebody sat in on some kind of behind closed door analyst meeting or something, and they were like talking about different stuff, but
It was an investor meeting at Deutsche Bank, which is a big,
investment firm.
massive. They
Yeah.
through the years we have talked about them uh, in a variety of
Hmm.
stories. They've got their money in everything.
Yeah. So they're like an institutional investor company. Anyway, so according to this report, however true or not it is, they're claiming overall length of just under 4,000 millimeters, which in Merkin is about 157 inches. So
Freedom units is how we measure things.
freedom units. Yeah. So slightly smaller than a Golf.
Yeah, this
For
is so the Model
reference.
Q, supposed Model Q is what they're
Mhm.
calling it.
It's a subcompact. Yeah.
This is the subcompact mythical $25,000
Yeah.
Tesla.
Yeah. So they're claiming about 157 inches, in which case, like I said, it would firmly be in the subcompact category for that size.
Which is, oh well, you can get to the next
Mhm.
thing, but it's like an ID3
Yeah,
size is
ab-
what they're
about
saying.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, so they're claiming in terms of the 25,000 price target. Now, I was a little fuzzy on this if they were factoring that before or after the tax credits, which may be going away in about a month anyway. But
And
anyway,
I read an article that said 30,000 and it would be priced at 37, but with the tax incentives would come down to 30. And then if the tax incentives get canceled, then that price might vary. But here we're talking rumors of rumors of rumors.
yeah, we
So
none of this is
yeah.
substantiated, so we just don't really know. Battery sizes, they're saying 53 and 75 kilowatt hour options, single and dual motor options, estimated range of 500 kilometers, which translates to about 311 miles.
But that'll
If
be on
that's
the
on the
Chinese cycle.
75 kilowatt hour battery, that's really not that impressive.
And that'll be the
Yeah.
Chinese cycle
Well, yeah,
something or
and
other, won't
plus
it? So
the I don't even can't
I mean these
even
are all estimates
pronounce.
once again.
Anyway, uh, they say if this unicorn launches, it'll be in the first half of 2025. We'll see.
And it's
Um,
supposedly based off of existing platforms that Tesla makes. So
yes.
presumably Model 3, and
So yeah,
it will
presumably a
be
adaptation of a Model 3 or Model Y.
And this report
Yeah.
saying
Yeah.
15% smaller, so you would assume
Mhm.
about 15% shorter and narrower and lower and everything, and 30% lighter than the
Well, that'd be
existing
significant in terms of
a
weight. If
Model 3 or Model Y, whatever. I mean, once again, this is all guesswork.
yeah, yeah, it's all speculation. My question is, well, I mean, it seems like the consensus is going to be some variation of the Model 3 or Y. My question is going to be, is it going to have steer-by-wire, 48-volt architecture? And Tesla's, their last few investor presentations, I don't know if you remember, they showed what they call their unboxed production line process,
Hmm.
where it's like traditionally cars basically, because of the production sequence, basically got painted twice or something, or like they had to assemble them and then disassemble and then reassemble. So I guess the unbox process, the idea is you eliminate the back and forth, the off and on. You just do it once and that's it. So my question is if it's going to incorporate that um, production process, which ostensibly would reduce the number of labor hours pretty significantly, which could also contribute to the lower cost. Anyway, of course, all this could be total bunk. Road and Track speculates it's just going to be a stripped down Model 3, which
Which
is
has
all
been,
which we've heard
yeah,
before too.
that's
So
been my theory for a while, is how you get down to the low price is the Model 3. But that, to me, that only gets you to the lower price. That doesn't necessarily get you to a smaller vehicle, which certain markets might want.
yeah, I mean, by like European and like some Asian market standards, Model 3 is still a pretty big car. I mean,
Hmm.
by American standards,
Teensy.
it's
It's cute.
not 10, it's I'd say compact mid-size-ish.
Yeah.
But for Europe, they're like, oh, this is a pretty big car.
Yeah. It's a
Um,
saloon.
Saloon, yeah. Um, so I mean, this could just be a Model 3 with cloth seats, get rid of the rear display. Um, I don't know what else they could really take out of it that would lower the cost, but um, maybe a few little minor features here and there, just like
I don't know how that gets them to the 30% lighter and the 15% smaller.
no,
Unless
that
they
that
start
that
taking
alone wouldn't.
off, you could take off the ends. You could shorten the bumpers on both sides. That would get you a little bit shorter. And I don't really know. Maybe you
Yeah,
could
yeah,
take
but in
a
that
row
case,
of
if you
batteries out. I
change,
don't know.
here's the thing though, is if you change too much, even if it's like less material, if it results in too much of a change in the production process, that'd actually be adding cost and complexity.
Hmm.
So ideally, if it's a stripped down Model 3, you'd want to keep basically what they call the hard points and the production process as similar as possible, minus a few little things, rather than a whole new model, which would require retraining, new production processes, so I don't know. I guess we'll see in about 3 or 4 months.
Do you
So
think there's any, you think this holds water? Do you think this is just
I think
gonna,
they will. Well, okay, like like any Tesla news, I say add 3 to 5 years. Um, I think they will show something in the first half of 2025. Now, in terms of it being imminent, like, oh, this is going to be on sale next month. No, it's probably going to be, my guess is 26 or 27 when it actually goes on sale.
and
But I
does
think
this
they'll
hit
probably show something.
does this hit the US market as well?
I would assume, I mean, with the exception of the Cybertruck, basically all their models are global. So um, I would expect if they're going to do it for China, they'll also do it for the US and Europe. So I don't know.
So Tesla's in a interesting. See, normally I would say this is bunk. This, it's
Hmm.
not going to be called a Model Q. There, that doesn't sound right to me.
Hmm.
It Launching it this quick doesn't sound right. Debuting it this quick doesn't sound right. Normally I would say that, but we're in a world
Hmm.
now where Tesla has essentially failed on its last two products. Three, if you count 4680, but I don't really count that because that's nerd stuff. Cybertruck, they had between 1 and 2 million orders,
Hmm.
and they've delivered somewhere between 25 and 50,000. And now I could
Hmm.
order
Now
one and
they're
get one.
idling the line
Yeah. So yeah, exactly.
because of lack of demand. Yeah.
Yeah. So they shot through 1 million back orders in a matter of 50,000 or fewer orders. That's
Hmm.
As far as
That's
image
not a very good
goes,
conversion rate.
it's as far as the image goes, I think it's great for Tesla that the
Yeah.
Cybertruck's out, and a lot of people have brought a lot of awareness to the company and
Hmm.
stuff like that. But as far as success, monetary success, total failure.
Yeah.
And there's no demand, going forward. They're not. If you run through 1 million pre-orders in a
Hmm.
year, and there's only 50,000 conversions, that's really bad. And then on top of that, you unveil the Robovan and the Cyber Cab or whatever the thing was
Hmm.
called, and neither of those are ready
Hmm.
for full autonomous. There's no
Hmm.
way those are going to be
Hmm.
on the road in mass. They're selling them for 30,000. None of that happens. So I think the last two items have been a failure for Tesla. They
Hmm.
need a win. They need a home run. And to
They need
me,
another Model Y, which
yeah.
by every measure has been a massive hit.
So
So,
I could totally, if you go back a year, I
hmm.
would say this, it's never going to happen.
Hmm.
Now I could see them going, oh, wow, we've got to rush something to market because we have no immediate possibility of the Robovan and
Hmm.
its
Hmm.
autonomous
Yeah.
counterpart.
Cybercab. Yeah. It's
Yeah, and
there's too many contingencies with the Cybercab in terms of regulation, approvals.
yeah, it's not up to Tesla to a point.
Yeah.
Tesla could make it, and then you can't even get approval to sell it.
Hmm.
And
Or
then
operate it in
are people
whatever
going to buy
markets. Yeah.
something without a steering wheel? There's so many unknowns.
Yeah.
And then the Cybertruck has been now a proven mass market failure.
Hmm.
I think it's great for image. I think it's great for the company. I'm
Hmm.
not bagging on the Cybertruck. I'm saying it's the demand is not there for it to be a Model Y.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that's the only thing that makes me think this could actually
And
happen on the timeline that they're kind of saying.
yeah, so kind of unpacking that a little more, just real quickly. I know there's a lot of other stuff we want to get to. That makes me think it's going to be more than just a stripped down Model 3. I think it could be a new form factor, basically uh, a B or C series hatchback, more like the description from this report out of China, because I think that would have more universal appeal in Europe, in China. I mean, I would be interested in a car like that. Um,
Yeah, if this were like a GTI, like
yeah.
your old
Hmm.
GTI,
Oh yeah, I'd be all over it. Yeah.
yeah.
So that's why I think that's probably what it may be. Um, and yeah, I think because, and here's the other thing, typically we just talk kind of like gearheads and just nuts and bolts and stuff. But I would say even from an investor perspective, if it's simply a stripped down Model 3, I think the investor community would be like, would
Yeah.
just like thumbs down. But if it's an actual new model, new form factor, new body style, I think that would excite the investor community. I think their stock could.
Even if it's largely
Yeah.
built off the Model 3 or Model Y,
Hmm.
and it's an adaptation of that, but
Hmm.
that's the underpinning. Because you could very easily
Hmm.
say, this is why we do these skateboard design battery
Hmm.
packs and
Hmm.
everything, is so you can do all of this and move fast. So I
Hmm.
think a lot of that, you can, I just think they need it. I,
Yeah.
and I really
So
hope that,
my crystal ball thing, it's gonna be a shrunken Model Y. It's, I'm just gonna put it out there. That's what I think it's effectively gonna look like. So we'll
but
see.
it should be a GTI / Rivian R3 competitor. That's what they should
Yeah,
make.
uh, they should, and I hope.
Well,
We'll
we might
see,
only have
but
to wait for 6 to 7 months
yeah,
to
we'll see.
find out. So Lucid has actually made a Gravity, I guess. They're is
Yes,
it a
the
mid
first official one,
is it
mid-size? No,
mid-size
I'd
or
say it's large.
is it large? It's smaller than my Yukon.
Oh yeah, for sure. Small. Well, I mean, I
So is
don't
my
even
Yukon
know.
an XL? Well, actually,
Yeah, I
technically
don't.
it is an XL.
Well,
So
XL. I'd call you. Well, you have an XL, but
yeah. I mean it says it
um,
on the back. So they've produced one Gravity?
well, I
Hooray!
mean, they've done the whole ribbon cutting, clapping
Yeah.
ceremony thing. I guess they had enough of them. They had I don't know if it was one that they just kind of pass around or they had multiple that, but a lot of outlets have done first drive reviews of the Gravity.
I haven't read any of those. What
Yeah,
was the
they're very complimentary for the most part, in terms of the driving dynamics, the engineering, the packaging. I mean, I think we've discussed on here from an engineering, like from an objective engineering standpoint, I really consider Lucid the leader in EV tech. I'd say
yeah.
even more so than Tesla in a lot of respects. Um, but so David Tracy of the Autopian, though, kind of gets back to the whole Jaguar thing we did last episode and before that is, and I think his description was a little, maybe a little bit harsh. He he said it looked like a Chrysler Pacifica. So, but he said he's in his background is he's an engineer, and he could tell that the design of the Gravity was very engineering driven, rather than like stylistically driven. So his whole thing was like, yeah, it's very impressive dynamically, performance wise, packaging, everything. But he's like, do people at this price point, and it's about 100,000, do they want something a little flashier, a little more kind of flamboyant? Um, so he's like, I don't know. He's like, I don't know if this is going to be a hit or not, but
Yeah, Lucid, I would say they wouldn't have a problem, but they've had a problem selling their Airs.
well,
And
I'd say mostly because of the price point. I mean, it's
yeah,
not a mass
no,
market vehicle.
that's where
Yeah.
I'm going. Is if the Air were
45, 50
50,000,
grand, they'd sell a ton of them. Yeah.
yeah. And I think this is going to fall in the same part. Like if you're going to spend $100,000 at this point, maybe you'll go and buy a Mercedes. I don't know how much the EQ lineup is. They're probably a little bit more than 100 grand, but you're not.
EQS, yeah. EQEs are, they're a little smaller, mid-size, but
So you might go to that because it's a trusted name as
mhm,
far as the brand goes. I think a lot of people aren't necessarily looking at when they're buying their first EV and they're going to spend $120,000.
mhm,
They're not necessarily going, well, Mercedes has not been in this quite as long as, Tesla or Lucid or whatever. They're looking at the name and they're saying
mhm,
Mercedes is an established brand name and I
mhm,
trust them. And then my last 5 cars have been Mercedes and they are great and the dealer's great and I get great service and everything's wonderful with it. And it says
mhm,
Mercedes on it. And I think
mhm,
that's where they go. And I think that's Lucid's problem with selling in that market is you're going against people who don't know or care that the
mhm,
Lucid is technically superior.
mhm.
They just look at it and go, I want a Mercedes.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. I think like a lot of other EVs we've seen in the past couple years, you will have that initial demand spike from the early adopters and the initial hand raisers that's like, ooh, new shiny, I like it, very kind of tech forward type customers. They'll buy it, but then the question is the demand sustainable? Are they going to be able to maintain that high level of interest, that high level of sales? Or is it just going to be, you know,
Yeah. The
so
the Lucid, I'm looking at the pictures on the Autopian. There'll be a link in the show notes. And the third row does look mighty fine.
mhm.
It looks ample
No, the
space.
packaging is amazing, really. I mean,
Yeah. The rear trunk is with the third row up is exactly what you'd expect. It's maybe a
mhm,
little bit better than what some other companies might do for
mhm,
trunk space. That's always the
mhm,
problem. That's why I got an XL Yukon
mhm,
is because once you get everybody in the car,
mhm,
you also need to put stuff in the
mhm,
car. And that you look at minivans, they end up going down, but the back seat just about
mhm,
touches the
mhm,
rear hatch on
mhm.
minivans and a lot of other, if you get the shorter,
Yeah.
like the Tahoe or something like that.
Mhm.
And this looks like it's not bad.
No,
So
like I said, from a purely objective standpoint, it's a home run. It's an incredible, uh, you know, piece of engineering, packaging, efficiency, all that. It's like it's amazing. But are people going to look at it like Tracy did and said, "Oh, it kind of looks like a Pacifica."
yeah, it's kind of a problem.
Yeah. So anyway,
So tell me a little bit about SAE. They have these
oh
standards.
yeah.
And so many moons ago, we interviewed some people from Charin. And
Hmm.
Charin kind of set the standard. They invented, didn't they? The CCS standard,
Yeah,
I think.
effectively, yeah.
Yeah. And they're somewhat, it seems like Charin is on the out and SAE is claiming electric charging a little bit more. Seems like since we went to NACS or
Hmm.
J3400, which
Hmm.
is an SAE standard, isn't it?
Yeah.
I haven't heard so much about Charin. And now SAE has got a plan with the federal government, I suppose,
Hmm.
to implement universal plug and charge,
Hmm.
which kind of already existed. And I don't know if this works off of the other standard Is it a continuation of the other standard that
Um,
like that Ford was using? I think Volkswagen was involved in that Volkswagen's never really worked too well with, even though they were
mhm.
part of the consortium coming up
So
with
I
it.
don't, I'm going to have to do a little more digging on this, but so the other standard, if you want to call it that, it was called ISO 15118. So ISO is another organization like Charin, like SAE, International Standards Organization is I think what it stands for. And they created the 15118, which are the specifications to enable universal plug and charge. But it's still kind of a work in progress, and they've still, even Tesla made some comment on how to improve it, like basically to rewrite the software to kind of resequence it to basically make the handshake happen faster. So they put in their 2 cents worth about that. Anyway, so long story short is this has been an issue for years with EVs. Is every charging network has their own protocol, their own software. So if you want to charge it at an EVgo station, you have to have the EVgo app. You want to charge a charge point, you got to have a charge point app, et cetera, et cetera. Each one required their own app. You had to input payment information. Sometimes I think, for you, I had to do it too. You have to prepay like $20 or something, and
Yeah,
it just kind of sits there.
I got $20 sitting in a charge point account that I may never use.
Yeah. So
Like,
it's been a total mess, and everyone's complained about it. So in theory, with this the SAE is what they call the EVPKI. So it's a public key infrastructure, is just a common industry-wide standard that it's a standardized reference. So in
but this is
theory,
different from the other standard, the ISO standard that Volkswagen and Ford were using.
I think I think this kind of builds on top of that because 15118 it was an international standard. I think this is just for the US. It's my understanding of it. But it's basically, I think a PKI is basically like a cybersecurity kind of component of this. So I think it ties into 15118. I'll have to dig a little more and get back to you. But long story short, they want to implement this. So ideally, I think the rainbows and unicorns vision of this is you can get rid of all charging apps. You plug in, the car will charge. Now, somewhere, somehow, you will need a method of payment on file. So, you know,
Well, ideally,
yeah,
if everybody is compliant with this, then you should be able to go to ChargePoint or to Electrify America or whatever, and they would say, "Oh, we are EVPKI compatible," and then you create one account, and then everything runs through them. And so you
yeah.
could
I
have
mean, I guess that's the
multiple.
wish is like if you're registered with any of the main charging networks, they have your payment information. It'll exchange that data with whoever and
Yeah,
say, oh, okay, we got a payment method, just plug in, boop, you
yeah,
know,
and then everybody takes their percentage off the top, and everybody makes money,
yeah,
presumably.
dogs and cats living together.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I mean, this I think will be a big catalyst to EV adoption because I think, in a lot of conversations I've had with friends and family, they're like, "Oh, what's it like to live with?" Da, 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 da. And I'm like, "Well, you do have to have a separate app for each charging network you go to, and you got to da da da." And then, oh, that's kind of a pain. Unlike,
It's a big pain.
yeah,
It's something that you've got to explain to somebody, and then they're like, "Oh." They're
yeah.
never
So,
like, "Ooh, I get to have 5 apps that I've got to sign up for and
oh,
keep on
just
my
five?
phone."
Those are
Like,
rookie numbers.
yeah, well, like nobody's happy about it.
Yeah,
Nobody that you explain this to goes, "Oh, that's simple." Like,
yeah,
yeah,
that
that
sounds
makes
great.
sense.
Yeah,
I'll line them up
sign me
now.
up. Yeah,
And you
yeah.
don't
I
know
mean,
which ones you need until
now
you get there.
I know you're going to say, "Oh, there goes Ed drinking the Kool-Aid again." Tesla had this figured out a long time ago.
Hmm.
Now, their plug and charge standard was proprietary, but it was basically the principle was the same. You plug in, it charges. You know, so they got it figured out. Now, I'm assuming they're going to be part of all this, and where it kind of goes along with the NACS CCS kind of,
Yeah, they're
you
going to
know,
have to be a part of it,
yeah.
whether they
So
want
anyway,
to or not, whether you like it or not.
whether you like it or not.
They got
So
to be a part
anyway,
of it.
uh, very exciting in principle. I do kind of wonder about how smooth the implementation is going to go. But if this comes to fruition, this will be a huge, huge development. So
If
Um,
there have been
I'm going to
several
say I'm
false
going to say
starts.
when. I should amend that. I'm going to say when,
Yeah.
but I don't think this is just going to be snap your fingers, magic.
No, the big joke was Volkswagen was involved in the ISO plug and charge several years ago, whatever that
Yeah.
was. And when it all launched, Volkswagens didn't work with it. And
No,
they were one of the big companies like
you were one of the
funding it.
co-founders of the
Yeah.
consortium.
So when I was driving that Mach E, that
Yeah.
worked perfect with it. And
Hmm.
Volkswagens didn't.
Yeah.
And yet Volkswagen was boning up the cash.
Yeah.
So I.
Yeah. We'll see. I think it may be like a 18 to 24-month implementation period, but once they finally get all the little wrinkles and bumps ironed out, I think this will be a huge development for sure.
Speaking of Volkswagen,
Yeah.
ID Buzz production is supposedly moving from Germany to Poland, but I'm gonna guess what is it? ID Metall? What is it? What's the union?
IG Metal, I think.
IG Metall. They're gonna be battling this. I imagine this isn't a
Oh,
done deal.
yes. No. This is what Volkswagen wants to do. But
Ah,
again,
okay.
labor unions in Germany are very powerful. Um, so this isn't just something they can just flip a switch and like, um, so I mean, the reasoning, I get the reasoning. Poland has much lower labor costs than Germany, even though I mean, they're literally neighbors, but, um, Eastern Europe in general is cheaper than Western Europe for manufacturing and labor. Um, I guess demand for the ID Buzz has been a lot lower than they were anticipating.
Who would have thought you sell a van for like $90,000 or whatever it is? Who would have thought
It
that
was
people would not?
72 at least. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's what it is, isn't it? It's like
Yeah.
60, 70, 65, 72, something like that. Those are the
Yeah.
base prices depending on the model that you for a minivan.
Yeah. Kind of a tough sell. Um, so anyway, Volkswagen said they need to close at least 3 plants in Germany, possibly more. So they may, and they're going to evidently try to transition production to Poland. Um, so we'll see how that goes. I'm sure, I'm sure the labor union's not going to take this sitting down. So
So another vehicle that's, uh, I'm sure this one won't fly off the showroom floor either. But I've been seeing more of, so the Solterra STI's
Saltine, yeah,
Saltine, and then there's the Toyota. That's a variant on the Toyota
BZ4X, yeah,
BZ4X, which is also the Lexus RZ 450.
450E, I think.
Yeah. So Subaru has been talking about, or is rumored, I don't know if they're talking about it, but making an STI variant of the Solterra. Now, the Solterra,
Mhm.
keep in mind, never been fast, can't charge it fast, can't go far. So that needs a
You sound like a
performance
Trump
element.
rally.
The
Can't go very fast, can't go far.
windmills are killing EVs.
Killing beautiful bald eagles.
So, uh, so it's hardly the car that you think of when you think of performance, but and this is rumored from Japan's Best Car magazine, I guess. I clicked on the link. We'll include a Road and Track link in the show notes.
You had
I
to do
clicked on
Google
the best.
Translate on it.
Well, I couldn't even find the button that said Google Translate, but it's very Japanese, the website. So I'll take Road and Track's word for it that this could be coming supposedly in 2025. I
Hmm.
began to wonder, is this based on, because this had been rumored before, but nothing had
Hmm.
happened. Is this Ford's the Mach E Rally's success, kind of taking a bite out of this? Because that's essentially what they would be coming
I
up with.
think
They
it's
came up with a
kind of
rally
that
version of the
idea.
Mach E. So did Subaru see this and they're like, oh no, we gotta like Ford's coming in. They're taking our.
Yeah, Subaru, I don't know. Subaru's kind of in a weird place because I think they have kind of a bifurcated like buying audience. I mean, you have the Foresters, the Outbacks, what's the Crosstreks, right? They're kind of they're nice. They're kind of mundane. They're not particularly exciting.
But
They're
they're
just
liked by tree hugging Birkenstock wearing hippies.
yeah. So they love those. And then you got the vape smoking bros and their STIs with their loud exhausts and
Who rip off the cats and they just
rip
want
off the
pure
cats and, you know,
performance.
spiky hair and, you know, loud blow off valves and all that. So you
It
kind of
is
have
odd.
these,
I'd not thought about this before, but it's two very different
yeah,
audiences.
two very different audiences. And I mean, I would have kind of considered the Solterra more like kind of outback crosstrek kind of, you know, that more that side of their audience than STI. But I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, maybe they just don't have anything for, and they've got nothing in the future lineup for electric STI stuff. Maybe they've looked at their table and or their chart for future cars,
Well,
and
I
they're
mean,
just like, we got nothing. We
well,
just
I
throw
mean,
the STI
EVs are
label
kind
on
of
it.
challenging because to make them, and this is, I mean, getting back to Lucid, this is where I think Lucid has been really, really good about how they've now, you know, granted it's $100,000 car, but in terms of balancing performance, capability, efficiency, all that, there is kind of this kind of delicate tipping point where if you go too far one way or the other, you lose. What am I trying? I'm trying to gather my thoughts here. Okay. Case in point. Okay. And I'm going to use a ridiculous extreme example, but Hummer, Hummer EV, right? Huge, massive 200 plus kilowatt hour battery pack. Yes, it can go 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. It weighs as much as a school bus. Okay. So they were like, you know, F it. We're just going to throw everything at it. We don't care how big and stupid and heavy it is. That's where we're going. Whereas if you, the opposite extreme is like the Mazda, uh, you know,
MX-30.
MX-30,
Yeah.
right? So tiny battery, weak motor, you know, it looked okay, but it was like objectively, it kind of sucked. I'm just gonna say it.
Yeah.
Um, so there is kind of this kind of golden mean where you balance both performance and capability, and you're not sacrificing too much one or the way or the other. I think that maybe the reason they're targeting the Solterra is because of the packaging needs for a battery to put in a battery big enough to give it decent range, decent acceleration performance. It has to be a certain size. Like they couldn't really do an Impreza EV STI with current technology, if that makes any sense. Or there would be too many sacrifices or trade-offs involved. And they're
We've
like,
hit
you
a
know what?
very we've hit a
Yeah.
very weird point, convergence. Before
Hmm.
EVs were starting their growth, we were moving as a
Hmm.
population in America toward SUVs, like
Hmm.
mid-size SUVs. That was the way the trajectory was
Hmm.
going. Nobody was buying sedans, whereas sedans before were king. Then all of a sudden people stopped buying those and people started buying the mid-size SUVs. Then
Hmm.
EVs started to take, or mid-size SUVs. Then
Hmm.
EVs started to take off and it made sense
Hmm.
than these SUV looking things because of exactly what you're saying, the packaging requirements for all of this.
Hmm.
It was
Hmm.
just this random weird convergence of those two size models
Hmm.
that happened simultaneously. So
Hmm.
I totally think that you're going to end up with an STI SUV. Like, I think that's the future.
Yeah, and they've actually had them in Japan. They've done there's been a Forester STI. There's been it's called the Lavorg. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's a size smaller than the current Outback, but it's basically what the Legacy used to be. And then the Outback has just gotten bigger and bigger and bigger, where it's effectively an SUV now. Um, and so yeah, it's not completely unprecedented that they're to have kind of weird, at least to, you know, Americans, kind of slightly offbeat kind of STI variants. So, you know, yeah, I'd say if they can do it, go for it. But
It'd be
I'm
cool
just
if they,
yeah.
or weird if they ended up
Hmm.
with the Solterra, which is kind of an embarrassment of an EV, and then the STI variant of it that all of a sudden is
Being
0 to
awesome.
60 in like 2.5 seconds and can fast charge and is a great road trip car. If they end up like going wild with it and throw their own engineering instead of Toyota's engineering, if they throw their
Hmm.
engineering into this existing platform, and
Hmm.
then you end up with, you could buy the regular Solterra, which can't really do anything, or you could buy the STI version, which is all of a sudden this amazing EV.
Yeah. on the flip side, what it also could be, and I hope it's not, is just like a trim level.
Woohoo!
You know,
M Technique. What was the M version that BMW had? Where it
M
was just
Sport
M
or
Sport, yeah, where it was just the body panels that were put on, so you could buy a 318 Ti with the M
M Sport package.
Sport package. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Anyway, so we'll see. Yeah.
Dodge. Speaking of loud and obnoxious, Dodge has got a commercial for its Charger EV that's hit YouTube that is all about. You'd think it
Saving the planet.
was, yeah, you'd think it was a STI or a Subaru commercial because it's all about saving the
Yeah.
planet, and then they flip it to we're actually saving the world from boring,
Stupid cars.
stupid cars and stupid EVs that you just like take naps in, whatever.
Their
Uh,
quote is lame sleep pods.
which is kind of the direction that Toyota was going in their anime series that they
Hmm.
had earlier this year. It was this battle in the Yaris
GR,
GR
GR
Yaris
racing. Yeah.
against the uh, autonomous sleep pods, basically the boring EVs. So it's the same exact marketing scheme. They're just doing it slightly different. Toyota did it in
Uh-huh.
anime, and Dodge is doing it with
In real life.
yeah, with a big exhaust noises
Frat Sonic.
with their Fratsonic exhaust. I find this a weird time to be pivoting on this, or not really pivoting, but bringing this to attention. This is the problem with a large organization because last week we discussed that Stellantis, parent
Hmm.
company of Dodge, has just fired
Carlos
Carlos
Tavares. Yeah.
Tavares. And now this week, Carlos Tavares is out. I think I don't know when, as of when, but he's
I
if
think they
he's
said
not,
effective immediately,
yeah, if it's
whatever
not
that
both feet out the
means.
door, it's one foot out the door.
Yeah.
And Tim Kuniskis, is that how you say
Yeah.
his name?
Yeah.
Who was the CEO of Ram, you had to explain to me before the show, who was
No, he most recently was the CEO of Dodge, but
okay.
even before that, he was also the CEO of Ram.
And you were saying that he was kind of the bad boy attitude.
He was basically the architect of kind of the revival of like the Hemi, of the Hellcats, of the SRTs, the Scat Packs, like all that, that whole kind of mystique and bravado
Which
surrounding the
largely
Hemi and the
made
muscle car
this
kind of
era, this
ethos. Yeah.
last 10 years or so, has been the
Hmm.
golden age for
For
Dodge,
Dodge. Yeah.
Hemi,
Hmm.
Hellcat stuff. This is the we will sing stories or sing songs and tell stories about this era in
Hmm.
30, 40 years. People will look back and go, much like now where people look back on videos from the 1990s and they're like, oh,
Hmm.
back then everything was perfect because you had the FDR X7, you had the
Hmm.
Acura NSX, you had all these perfect cars, the Supra,
Hmm.
and they're like, oh, it was so great back then. And as a somebody who was alive, that yeah, it was great.
Hmm.
It was actually wonderful. And
Yeah.
this, we have just exited
Hmm.
another one of those times with these
Hmm.
V8s, with the Coyote, with all, like, it's a golden era
LS. Yeah.
of V8
Hmm.
big muscle engines that people will look back on in 30 years and say, wow, they had it great back then,
Hmm.
as far as ICE goes. This is
Hmm.
an EV
Hmm.
podcast.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, no, but I'm
so
hoping,
so this guy's coming
even
back and he's going to do it all again? Or is he going to be bad boy for EVs? Does this tie in directly with this commercial? Or is this one arm is doing one thing and just by
so
crazy random happenstance, here he is the
here
bad boy's
my
back.
okay, so my hot take on this is the last, I'd say, I don't know, 18 to 12 months for Stellantis have not been good. Um, they they really, their prices started getting out of control, which affected their sales. I mean, when you're selling Jeep Wranglers for 80 grand, yeah, I mean, there's only so many people that can afford that. Um, so I think they've kind of woken up to the fact that, okay, we need to have more attainable, more desirable cars at a price point people can afford that are kind of cool and kick ass and desirable again. And under Kuniskis, they did. Under both Ram and Dodge, I mean, like we discussed last week, there was a period, I think, I don't know how consistent, but I think for probably a better part of a year, the Challenger, which ironically is like a 10 plus year old platform, was outselling the Mustang, which was a much newer, objectively much more modern platform, but the Challenger was outselling it because it kind of had this cool kind of retro bad boy kind of look and vibe to it, and people just ate it up. And Kaniskas was a big part of that. So I think they're hoping they can bring him back in, um, have more of an influence on product marketing, product development, really kind of lean into the Hurricane as much as possible. I've even heard rumors they may even come back out with the V8. Potentially, one of the things I've heard is actually based on the Hurricane architecture, which itself is based on kind of the modular 2-liter 4-cylinder. So basically, they just kind of added on 2 cylinders and created the Hurricane. But then you could take 2 4-cylinders, put them together and have a V8. So
So is Kaniskas the next CEO of Stellantis?
of the entire company, I'm sure there are some people that would love to see that happen. I
Or
think the thing,
Stellantis USA, maybe?
well, no, I'd say North American president. I think that's absolutely on the table. Um, I think Stellantis as a whole, and who knows? I mean, all bets are off in the next, 3 to 5 years about how that's all these pieces are going to fall. Stellantis's European business is pretty different than North America. I mean, Fiat, Alpha, Peugeot, Citroen, just culturally and the markets are just completely different than North America. So I don't really see Kaniskas as being head honcho of the entire organization, but CEO of North America, I think that's a definite possibility because I think he has a really good feel and pulse for what the North American market wants, especially the enthusiast community. He's like beloved in the enthusiast community. So as much as possible and as much as they can, considering the environmental regulations, cafe standards, all that. I think he'll be very creative in trying to work within that to create some really exciting and desirable products. So I'm excited to see what happens with this. So
Speaking of desirable products, thewalkcar.com/store. We've got a whole bunch of shirts. Some of them say the Walk Car, some of them say EVAF, and
got an adapter for
EV.
that.
Yep, I've got an adapter for that. EV displacement replacement. We've also got hats. If you are watching us on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/at the Watt Car, you will see Ed wearing one of the hats right now. And there's one in the background that I've got. Uh, Everything we talked about will be embedded into the show notes. If you can leave us a review on any of the podcast things, that would be great. And YouTube, like and subscribe and do all that. You know how that works. There is a way to email us, although it's pretty useless. So hello at thewalkcar.com. But
Just leave a
generally just
YouTube comment.
leave a YouTube comment. We'll read those. And then thewalkcar.com/advertise for Stellantis. Maybe we gave that to them last week. I don't know.
Open invitation.
Yeah, open invitation works 100% of the time. What is it? 50% of the time, it works 100% of the time. They just need to advertise once and I'd be happy. We are knee deep in the holidays. I don't even know where we stand. I don't even know, because in every office, I think the holidays is when they pile you up with the most work. So
I know that's my case. So
yeah. So we'll be back next week regardless with more
something.
news and something. We'll see what we can throw together at the last second and have it pop out like some kind of entertaining podcast.
See you
Bye.
then.